Visualize with the sonogram. So I right click and it just chooses for all bands when you do this. And so instead of analyzer or fill or all this other stuff, I have sonogram, and I guess I could deselect normalize if I wanted. Anyway, so another thing I had to do is increase the opacity because it was very dim like this. So you can make it a lot more rich, and you can sort of change how it affects things as well. So that's pretty good. What the point of using the sonogram is, it shows you a much more detailed version of the sounds that are most significant because of their resonant character. So I can see that this is the occupation of the kick. So if I play the sample, its most resonant frequency is happening right here. And on the snare, it's a little bit more diminished, but it's here. And then on the hi-hat, of course, it's here. And that's really a perfect render of that hi-hat. So, and in this way I can get the pre-filtration for the drum replacing that I'm going to do. You can actually get away with using just MDrumReplacer to map out what should be triggered, because if you're using the crossovers, that's a pretty good representation of the frequency spectrum and the range for each of the important instruments you're trying to replace. And so basically on this one here, I have the snare and the kick showing, but I can see that this is the snare, and I'm on the snare section here. And so what I want to do is just drag the threshold up so that it's only going to trigger that snare hit. So that's a really close match with that snare, and there's an additional tom playing, and that's a whole nother thing that I could hone in on and potentially replace that sound as well. But really I just want to focus on the kick, the snare, and the hi-hat until we get a better understanding of how the MDrumReplacer can really hone in on things. If I wanted to replace this drum right now, I would go over here and I would choose my sound. So I'm going to choose snare, and so I can do that. So it's got a blend of them right now, so I can bump that up so we hear just the replacement. So what's really cool is it added some effects there, and that's because it's adding an entire patch. Whereas if I use a tool like this, honing in on individual elements of a sound. So anyway, those are some ways to get a replacement on just the snare. So now we'll do the kick. See what we can do here. So we will identify where the kick is hitting, and we already have it pre-filtered here because we're using only the low part of the crossover. And of course, I'm using 3, but you could use more than 3 if you want to try to get more precise. And I guess I'll have to turn down that snare a little. So what it is you can use the output that's built right into MDrumReplacer. And so just doing that, you can see you could take it out altogether. And what's really cool about that is you could probably go even lower using volume tools, because you may want to have just like a ghost note there. So let's see if we can do that. So what it's doing there is it's only playing the original sample. That ghost snare that you hear when I lower the volume all the way, that's even going to go away as well once I treat these other elements. We should probably do the hi-hat. So we're in the hi-hat range here. Let's listen to what it sounds like. So it's not capturing the maraca, but it's capturing the hi-hat. And if we wanted to get the maraca, we probably need another crossover. But I can see that it does capture this hi-hat. So let's go ahead and replace that sound. And now we'll add all the other elements. Alright, let's go back to our volume trick here and see if we can totally eliminate the snare. So with all of these elements fully wet, we no longer hear the backing drum sound at all. So now when we isolate these, we get a total isolation. And that's muted because I have the volume all the way down. So that does work. Once you have completely isolated your triggers, you can completely replace the tone that you were trying to replace. And the significance of that is you could also do a dip. So you could fake it out so you don't have the actual sound playing. That's why I wanted to be able to do that. And that comes in handy when you're doing like a trickier element where there's like a fast rhythm and you want to quickly make a mute. And so that's why you would want to do that. You could modulate the pitch using the modulators.